Hey everyone, so this is a first video of its kind. What I like to do is I like to explore my thoughts, my ideas through OpenAI's ChatGPT, and I basically want to learn. I use it as a learning tool. And yes, I realize it's a large language model, and you've got very like nuanced ways of approaching it, and I fully realize that this is going to become the truth eventually for majority of people, where the results are going to be what people take as truth and maybe not look any further. What I want to do is I want to go below the layers. I want to understand it end to end, so that it makes sense for me and it makes sense as a perspective and a lens upon the world. So yeah, I thought about recording this because if I'm going to do it anyway, I might as well record it and see if it can help people. Might not, might be useless, we might get nowhere, but at the same time, there could be little gems that get unpacked somehow. And if that can help you in your walk of life, then yeah, I'm super stoked with that. So what I've got is I've got my laptop in front of me. I'm going to refresh what the voice says because I want to be able to read it and draw mental imagery for myself, but I'm going to do a voice prompt on here so that the response you'd be able to hear. So without further ado, let's go. Right, what's really been piquing my interest these days is this concept of awareness, because everybody has awareness. Everybody's body interprets signals that are all around us, and these signals basically change shape or they move in some way for us to be able to sense them and for us to be able to then articulate them and become aware of them. And then obviously the layer from there would then be, from an awareness perspective, like you are only aware of what you are focusing on or what you're allowing in. And then when something surprises you, like a car hooted behind you suddenly when you don't even know there was a car there, or you get a fright because your partner, like last night, Kendall was outside on our balcony looking through the door and I didn't know where she was, and she just looked at me through the door, like that kind of, and it was dark, like that kind of scared me a bit. But yeah, like those little moments that peak, that heighten, those then get pulled into our awareness whether we like it or not. And then, yeah, like there's stuff that still happens in the background that isn't necessarily in our awareness, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't exist, because those things in the background are still existing. Like for me now, if I'm looking in front of me and I've lit candles in another room, to my knowledge, there's candles in the other room, but my awareness might not be thinking about those candles in the other room. Just like a random example, if you are just sitting down listening to this, for example, your tongue in your mouth, before I told you about it, you might not realize or have been aware of the tongue in your mouth, like the feeling of your tongue in your mouth. But now that I've said it, now your awareness and focus is on it, which is so strange, because then if you take that and you build that into everyday life, then really what you focus on and what you're aware of and where your intention and attention goes, that's what you're going to be taking in, that's what you're going to be processing. And that means that if you are focusing on the wrong things, or you're focusing on the negative, or the things that could go wrong, rather than equally so the things that could go right, if you focus on the negative, you end up spiraling towards the negative, and you'll look for the confirmation of the negative, because that's what you are focusing and what you're aware of, which means that in society, your thoughts and your mindset is so powerful, because if you can believe in the future being a better outcome than a negative outcome of where you are, then your attention and your awareness and your intention is focused on the positive outcomes. Because in the future and the past are just thoughts, right? The future we haven't existed in yet, and the past is just a memory. It's a thought. It no longer exists. What's present, what's real is now. Eckhart Tolle, right? The power of now. It's the eternal now. So that being said, the future is a thought, the past is a thought or memory. Therefore, if the future hasn't happened yet, why are we focusing on something that could go wrong? Why aren't we focusing on what could go right, whilst mitigating what the potential could go wrong for the things that you think could go wrong, but not dwelling on that? Surely that would then bring within our awareness and bring within our attention and intention positive movement and positive self-talk, and that we can accomplish the things that we need to accomplish for ourselves. Surely we can live within a different reality, but that doesn't mean like a different universe or whatever. It just means that we frame things in a different way, because it will be more positive to us, regardless of whether it works out or not. Holding yourself up for the majority of the day, each day, with the intention that it is going to work out, and applying oneself, etc., etc. Like, if you bring that into your awareness, surely that's the reality that you're going to start framing and seeing the world through. And that's a story that your mind is going to have, that everything else stacks above that as a lens and perspective on the world. Please, can you unpack my thoughts, unpack what truths come up within it, and tell me what intrigued you with that, and let's go from there.
Absolutely. Let's dive into that. You've laid out a really thoughtful stream of consciousness about awareness, and it's quite interesting how you've highlighted that what we focus on essentially becomes our reality. It's that idea that if you're attending to something, you're effectively bringing it into the foreground of your mind. And that can shape how you interpret your experiences. What intrigues me is how you're connecting this to the notion that focusing on the positive or the constructive can essentially frame the entire way you view your day-to-day life. The idea that the future and the past are essentially mental constructs, and what really matters is where you place your attention in the present, is a powerful one. In essence, what you're saying is that your awareness is like a lens. If you tilt that lens towards the positive, you start to shape a reality that is framed by those positive possibilities. And of course, I'm sticking with your preference for UK English spelling and avoiding any M dashes while we're unpacking this. We can certainly explore it further from here.
Great, thank you. What I want you to do is, I want you to speak to me in 8th grade level English, right? So that's how your responses will be. I want your responses to be straightforward and plain. I don't want any like anything dramatic or anything of that nature, right? Just keep it simple and truthful, and make sure that your answers are scientific, or truthful, or factual, right? So with that being said, critique what I've said to you and find the gaps within what I said, but then equally so where the truths are.
straightforward and factual. Now, looking at what you said, you've actually got a solid point about how awareness shapes our reality. The truth in your reflection is that our focus does influence what we perceived and how we interpret the world. That's a well-established idea in psychology. Now, if I were to point out gaps, I'd say that while it's true that focusing on positive outcomes can help us feel more optimistic, it's also important to acknowledge that realistic thinking includes being aware of potential challenges. In other words, it's not just about focusing on the positive, it's about balancing awareness so you're prepared but not dwelling on the negative. In short, the truth is, you're absolutely right about the power of where we place our attention. The slight gap is just remembering that it's not about ignoring possible difficulties entirely, but rather keeping a balanced and present focus.
What are some good questions to ask you now based on this conversation today? Give me 2 top questions that we would want to know.
Sure, let's keep it nice and simple. One good question might be, how can we actively shift our daily awareness to focus more on positive possibilities rather than worries? That helps us explore practical steps from what you've been saying. Another question could be, what are some simple ways to notice when our awareness is drifting to the negative, and how do we gently bring it back? That would let us think about small habits or cues to stay more present and positive.
Okay, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for us to unpack that first one. So what you can do is first unpack that question yourself, answer it in full. I want also you to be able to provide thinkers that have thoughts similar and how they approach the subject.
Absolutely. Let's break that down fully. So the question was how we can shift our daily awareness to focus more on positive possibilities. In essence, it's about training ourselves to be more mindful of where our attention naturally goes and gently guiding it toward more constructive or hopeful thoughts. One practical way is to start a habit of daily reflection or journaling. For example, you can spend a few minutes each morning noting down a couple of positive intentions for the day or a few things you're looking forward to. This sets a tone of positive awareness from the start. Another approach is what some thinkers call a gratitude practice. Figures like Martin Seligman, who's known for positive psychology, have suggested that regularly writing down things you're grateful for can help shift your awareness towards positive aspects of life. Another thinker, John Kabat-Zinn, who's well known for bringing mindfulness into the mainstream, often talks about the idea of living in the present and gently returning your attention to what uplifts you when you notice it drifting. In short, you can build simple daily habits that nudge your mind to focus on positive possibilities. And thinkers like Seligman and Kabat-Zinn had explored similar territory by encouraging gratitude and mindfulness as tools to shape a more positive frame of mind.
Thank you. But I think what could be quite cool is if for instance you are like, rather than it being so broad and open-ended, which people might struggle with, and obviously journaling is a massive thing. A lot of people do it, a lot of people recommend it. I don't necessarily do it. I do to an extent on notes, but not necessarily the way that it's people have been informed by influencers to be able to do it. I do it in my own kind of fashion, my own way, which is obviously still a form of. But what I'm more interested in is I want to understand, rather than a broad spectrum of bringing things into your awareness and, writing down random things that will still help in the end, because every bit helps and it's the intention behind and the focus and the outcome So every bit helps, but I feel like you could over-index, or rather, you would benefit faster, or it would be more efficient and effective if you were to hold questions in your mind of something that you wanted to become more aware of. So for instance, it might not apply to everything, but for instance, if I wanted to have more confidence, right? Confidence is obviously the inside, it's inner work. The external environment, obviously you don't want to rely on the external environment to try to fill a need within, because the external environment, it's chaos. Like, you can't predict, and on an individual level you can't necessarily predict pattern and know the outcome of every single outcome and how you interpret those outcomes. You can't tell whether when you go into a store for a coffee that's going to be a good experience. Like, maybe it has been, but maybe today they don't have your croissant, or they don't have a specific type of coffee, or the coffee cup's too hot, or whatever it is that throws you, right? There will be those moments. But where I'm getting at is, if I wanted to improve confidence, where people perceive confidence, where people see confidence by me feeling fully confident within myself, then surely when I write about awareness, or journal about awareness, or think about the awareness in terms of how you've generically said, then I could be writing the awareness of that I ate a healthy breakfast, and that I whatever, right? Random things that don't necessarily apply to the thing that I want to work out. So if I get clear on exactly what I want to improve upon, or hold that within my attention and my awareness, then I would be able to focus on a question that says, how I'm sitting now, is that a sign of confidence, or is that a sign of, would I interpret how I'm sitting as laziness, as tiredness, as lack of confidence? Are my shoulders forward? Am I hunched over? Or am I, sitting proud and shoulders back and chest out and confident and, filling my space? Like, if I could ask myself simple questions, then I'd be able to check in real time in those moments that I become aware of it, because I'm repeating that question. So then I could repeat the way or approach, or how I want to show up within that given moment, by asking myself the same question, or the same types of questions. Maybe it's a handful of questions, maybe it's 2 questions. Am I speaking in a way that people will listen to or understand? Like, surely, again, you can't control what others listen to or comprehend, or etc. But am I positioning myself in such a way that I am optimizing the potential of? Same with the body confidence. Am I looking confident? Am I feeling confident? Maybe those are the questions. Something that you do repeatedly for 21 days, and you can begin to build new habits by asking the same questions on the things that you want to work on, and not to necessarily stack and dilute the amount of things you want to work on, but rather intensely going at specific 1 or 2 topics or things that you want to improve upon, and focusing on those 2 for a 3-week to a 2-month period of time, and being able to stack from there onwards. What are your thoughts with regards to this? And how could you maybe improve on what I've said?
Absolutely. Let's refine that idea. What you're suggesting is essentially a more targeted form of bringing awareness to a specific area you want to develop. Rather than journaling broadly or just noting random aspects of your day, you're focusing in on one or two very specific intentions. In your example, that's building confidence by asking yourself concrete questions in the moment about your posture, your tone, or how you're presenting yourself. That's a really practical approach, and it can indeed be more efficient because you're training your awareness in a very focused way. By repeating those same confidence-related questions regularly, you're effectively building a mental habit that makes confidence a more natural state over time. In terms of improvement, I'd say you're spot on with the idea of focusing on one or two areas for a few weeks at a time. Many behavior experts agree that focusing on a small set of habits makes it easier to see progress and actually integrate those changes into your daily life. So overall, it's a really smart refinement. Instead of broadly journaling, you're honing in on a specific intention and using repeated intentional questions to build that focus. It's a very practical and grounded way to strengthen exactly the trait you want to develop.
Can you help me draw up a 5-step plan in order to be able to do this, where it makes it easy for any adult individual or teenager to be able to do this safely and to be able to make a habit of it without being too generic and without just saying, write morning pages or journal or write in notes. Like, I don't want necessarily anything too generic. I want something where it can quickly form a habit, and not necessarily that it's just about speed or that type of thing, because it isn't. Like, this is meant to be sustainable. So something where there isn't necessarily a huge time allocation needed for this, because in a hyper-stimulated world such as the one that we live in right now, and where our attention spans are being pulled in all sorts of directions, and the whole purpose of apps now is to really to be sticky and to gain our attention and to keep our attention, because that's more profitable for these apps. So in a world where we know that that is happening, and that there's these dopamine attraction grabbing elements all around us, and there are needs, right? Like the need to work, to be on time. Maybe you've got a family, maybe you've got to fetch your kids from school or drop them off, or whatever it is. Like there's so many commitments in life today. How could this fit in? Because this will help you take care of yourself and actually show up better in the communities and in life, and for your family and for yourself and for the people that you come into contact with, because you'll be taking care of yourself and you'll be showing a better version of yourself, a version that you control, a version that you own, a version that makes you happy and makes you you. It's different for everyone, right? But everybody knows that there is potential within them, and whether they see it or not, they have potential. Everybody's got potential, and it's about if you want to attain that potential for yourself or not. And those that do, and those that are intentional about it, how could they develop the necessary kind of patterns and steps that would work universally, no matter the demographic, no matter status, income level, job types, whether you finished school, went to university, got a master's or not. What could really be universal in this approach?
Absolutely. Let's lay out a 5-step plan that's simple, sustainable, and can fit into anyone's routine, regardless of how busy they are or what their background is. The idea here is to create a habit that helps them tune into a chosen focus, like confidence, without needing a huge time commitment. Step 1, define one clear focus question. First, choose one specific area you want to build awareness around. For example, if it's confidence, your focus question might be something like, am I holding myself confidently right now? Keep it simple and direct. Step 2, attach it to a daily anchor moment. Next, link this question to something you already do every day, like having your morning coffee or brushing your teeth. That way, when you do that routine activity, you'll also ask yourself the focus question. It becomes a natural reminder without adding extra time to your day. Step 3, use a quick check-in method. When you hit that anchor moment, just take a brief 30 seconds to check in with yourself. Ask the question and notice your posture, your tone, or whatever your chosen focus is. This quick reflection is all you need to do. Step 4, adjust in real time. Based on what you notice, make a small adjustment if needed. If you realize you're slouching and you want to appear more confident, just straighten up a bit. These tiny real-time tweaks reinforce the habit. Step 5, reflect briefly once a week. Finally, once a week, spend just a couple of minutes reflecting on how it's going. You don't need a big journaling session, just a quick mental note or a short note on your phone about any progress you've noticed. This keeps it sustainable and helps you see the gradual improvement. In summary, this 5-step approach is about having one clear question, tying it to something you already do, doing a quick daily check-in, adjusting in the moment, and then just a brief weekly reflection. It's a universal structure that can work for anyone, without demanding a lot of extra time or effort.
Well, there you go. So, in terms of where we've come out, yeah, those are the refinements. Try focusing on that which you want to improve upon. Like, let that be your starting point. Pick a topic that you either fear or have a limiting belief around, or you doubt yourself within. There's some sort of fear of judgment, or fear of success, or fear of failure. Any type of fear that you have towards a certain topic, and that you realize the importance of reversing that topic, subject for yourself. Whether that's a trait, emotion, reaction, way of thinking, way of speaking, whatever it is for you, focus on one thing. Ask yourself a question, a very simple, easy question to remember that's memorable for you, and that you can repeat as often as you can think about that question. And if you battle with that, then another option would be probably setting a calendar reminder on your phone, and that notification to pop up once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day for 21 days. It's very simple to set that up, and that will trigger your ability to think about it, think about the question, think about the response in that moment, and you'll start to build the patterns and the understanding within that moment to be able to become aware of it more often, so that if the trigger comes through, in a notification when you're sitting in the office, then the more times you do it, the more times you sit in the office, the more your mind might start to ask that question for itself, and then associate it with that, and then the pattern starts. And that pattern is a good pattern, because that pattern will help you to become the version that you want to become. So there we go. Hopefully that is useful. Hopefully you enjoyed this first episode of ever doing something like this. For for whoever watched this, thank you very much. If you can support the page, if you can tell me if it resonated with you, if it helped you, if it unlocked something, and if you do go through the steps, like what I'm going to be doing, then I'd love to hear how it goes, where the refinements are. Maybe you've improved the formula that ChatGPT came up with, and we can go from there with more awareness and more appreciation and more compassion for ourselves. So thank you very much.